She is probably one of the top 3 vaccinologists in the country. Some call her the godmother of vaccines, vaccinology. This is a case involving vaccines and autism, and I had an opportunity to depose her, and you can hear what she has to say about the state of the science regarding vaccines and autism. Please hit play.
According to your profile, you have done most of the pivotal trials relied upon to license many of the vaccines, correct, on the market?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you're highly experienced in conducting clinical trials, correct?
I'm highly experienced conducting clinical trials.
Okay. And you're familiar with many of the clinical trials that relied upon to license many of the vaccines currently on the market, correct?
I am.
Isn't it true that you've also been an advisor to Pfizer?
Yes, sir. I have been an advisor to Pfizer, and I've been working very, very closely with Pfizer, particularly their COVID vaccines, and going over lots of reactions and adverse events. So yes, I am working and being paid by Pfizer for my assessment of vaccine safety.
You're part of the DataSafety monitoring board for the
That's
Pfizer
correct.
COVID vaccine. Is that what you meant when you
That
said
is
that?
correct.
You're one of the only 5 members of that DataSafety monitoring board over the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine, right?
Yes, sir, I am.
And that's supposed to be an independent data safety monitoring board, correct?
It is an independent data safety and monitoring board.
That's the board that all of us in America are hoping on and relying upon is going to independently make sure that safety is properly assessed as the clinical trial for that Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine is ongoing, correct?
That's true, and let me tell you that we have worked very hard to go over this and worked very, very hard to do that indeed as comprehensively as we possibly can.
And since it's supposed to be independent, it's critical that the members of that independent data safety monitoring board are in fact independent of the pharmaceutical company whose product is being evaluated, correct?
That's correct.
But isn't it true that directly before becoming a member of the independent data safety monitoring board of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine, you were an advisor to Pfizer?
Pfizer pays me to evaluate the safety of their vaccines because I'm an expert. So I do get paid to do the work that I've been doing, but I've been doing the work conscientiously and comprehensively.
My question was, before you became a member of the independent data safety monitoring board for the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine, isn't it true that you were separately, before you held that independent position, you were an advisor to Pfizer?
Yes, sir, but I think what you're presuming is that because I've been an advisor makes me on their dole or makes me going to say what they want me to say. That is not and has never been a part of my being. I say what I believe based on my expertise.
So you don't think that financial incentives can sway people's judgment at all?
It does not sway my judgment, sir.
Why bother having an independent data safety monitoring board? Why doesn't Pfizer just have some of its employees on it?
Because we are independent.
Meaning folks who were never advisors to Pfizer.
We are independent from Pfizer in this assessment.
If you're going to design a clinical trial of a vaccine given to children 18 months or younger, how long would that clinical trial need to be to determine whether the vaccine caused autism?
In general, the autism is generally diagnosed somewhere within the first couple years of life, and I think maybe the mean time is about 2 years, depending upon the severity. So I think that however, I think that most of the going theories would suggest that autism is really a prenatal event and not an event that happens after the child is born. So I think that what you're asking me is a little bit of a loaded question, and so I will ask you, or I will answer in that that the vaccine trials that are conducted always have a tail of about a year that is required for the manufacturers to follow the patients.
For the vaccines licensed, by the year 2000, how many children would you estimate need to be in those clinical trials to detect whether the vaccine caused autism by 8 to 18 months, and how long would the trial need to continue after 18 months of age?
I can't give you those numbers off the top of my head, exactly how they would be. I think that I think one of the, when you have a rare event, although, autism is now felt to be about 1.5% of the population, when you have a rare event, and particularly when it might have been more difficult to diagnose earlier, in an earlier time, then I think it takes larger numbers, but I can't give you that number.
About clinical trials, would you agree with me that the clinical trials relied upon to license the vaccines given for Yates were not designed to determine whether these products cause autism when given to an infant or toddler at or below the age of 18 months?
I think those trials were likely not powered to answer that question. I don't recall the actual number that were enrolled in the MMR vaccine trials, and so I can't say that definitively. But I would trust that it likely was not large enough, and that's why large database studies are needed to really assess that in a phase 4 assessment.
So it sounds like you would agree there weren't. They probably, as you said, are unlikely to be improperly powered, and they would have needed to review safety long enough as well to determine, to capture enough children in the experimental and control group that had or didn't have autism in order to make an assessment of whether the product caused autism, correct?
Yes, sir. If an adverse event were to occur associated with vaccines, that if it were an uncommon event and if it was not diagnosed until later, then you would need a larger number of sample size and a longer period to assess that. I am not saying, however, by answering yes to your questions, that I believe that vaccines cause autism. So I just want to make sure that you understand what I'm saying.
Never asked that question. Absolutely. I think the record's clear on that. How long would safety have to be tracked in the clinical trials relied upon to license the vaccines Yates received in order for them to have determined whether the vaccine caused autism?
Jack, to form the question. You may answer, doctor, if you have any.
I'm not going to answer it. I've already answered the question.
I don't recall that you have not provided any period of time. Are you saying you don't know period of time? Please.
I said that the studies that were involved in the licensure of MMR did not provide an adequate number of patients that had been followed for 4 years to determine a rare event that would happen 4 years after vaccination. That's what I'm saying.
According to your profile, you have done most of the pivotal trials relied upon to license many of the vaccines, correct, on the market?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you're highly experienced at conducting clinical trials, correct?
I'm highly experienced conducting clinical trials.
Okay. And you're familiar with many of the clinical trials that relied upon to license many of the vaccines currently on the market, correct?
I am.
In your opinion, did the clinical trials relied upon to license the vaccines that Yates received, many of which are still on the market today, were they designed to rule out that the vaccine causes autism?
No. You've badgered me into answering the question the way you want me to, but I think that that's probably the answer.
Is that your accurate and truthful testimony?
Yes.
Thank you. Can varicella vaccine cause an infection of the brain?
That's what encephalitis is, yes.
Okay. Can DTaP vaccine cause seizures?
It can be associated with seizures in that it can cause fever and also sometimes, so yes, it can be associated with seizures.
Can DTaP cause coma?
No, sir.
Again, would you be surprised if the CDC has concluded there is a causal relationship between DTaP and coma?
Yes, I would, sir.
Can DTaP cause permanent brain damage?
No, sir.
Would you again be surprised if...
I would be exceedingly surprised because no one believes that.
Then we'll come back to that.
Good.
Can MMR cause encephalitis?
Yes.
Can MMR cause febrile seizures?
Yes.
Can MMR cause thrombocytopenia?
Yes, definitely.
Can MMR cause death?
MMR can cause death in immunocompromised subjects, and that happens. Sorry?
Can MMR cause a child to enter into a coma?
Very unlikely unless they have immunocompromise.
Can MMR cause brain damage?
Not in a normal, healthy subject without underlying problems.
So a child with underlying problems, MMR can cause brain damage, correct?
I think I would have to assess each individual, the causality of each individual one.
So it's possible.
I'm not sure. Not in a normal, healthy person.
You're aware the CDC has specifically used the word brain damage as a possible cause from MMR?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Section 4 is the risks of vaccine reaction, correct?
Yes.
And under severe events occurring very rarely, it lists brain damage, correct?
Yes, it does.
Lowered consciousness?
Yes.
Coma?
Yes.
Long-term seizures?
Yes.
Deafness?
Yes.
Seizures?
Yes.
Okay. There's no scientific evidence to support that DTaP causes autism that they could find, correct?
That's correct.
And there's no scientific evidence to support that it doesn't cause autism that they could find, correct?
That's correct.
Is there a study that shows that DTaP vaccines does not cause autism? You're muted.
I know I'm muted. I'm thinking.
Mr. Sanders, let me interject if you don't mind. Can somebody explain to me why does Dr. Edwards continue to mute her microphone? I'm
sorry, sir. I am sorry, sir. I am sorry. Sometimes I mute because I want to make sure that I can hear what's being, and I don't want to create any other noise. So I will stop muting the phone.
Okay, thank you, doctor. I just making sure we're all on the same page.
Craig, I just feel like I'm getting badgered.
Okay, why don't we go off the record for a minute and take a break, and the attorneys can talk for a minute.
I've got a few more questions, and then we can take a break. There is nothing that is badgering. These are, I understand.
I'd like to take a break.
Mr. Siri, let's just do this, Mr. Siri. Let's take a break just a second, okay? And we'll talk. Let Dr. Edwards regroup, and we'll come back and we'll start again, okay?
What time should we start? 5 minutes?
I think we need to talk for a minute, David.
That's fine. We'll talk.
I would like to talk. I'd like till the bottom of the hour. And Mr. Sanders, if you could give me a call, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
And we're off the record.
Let the record. No. We're not going off the record yet. Mr. Sawyer. Mr. Sawyer.
That's fine. I
want to make a statement before we go off the record. I would like to make a statement on the record that I understand that Dr. Edwards is not used to being challenged about her vaccine knowledge. She's never been an expert witness. None of the questions here are badgering. They're all directly relevant to the question of vaccines causing autism. She may not like to have to give the answers she's giving, but that's not an excuse to pause the deposition, nor is it an excuse to force a break when we've just had a break fairly recently. This is clearly taking an opportunity to coach the witness in the middle of a line of questioning that clearly the defense finds troubling. So with that, we could take our break.
I noticed that Dr. Edwards, the witness, was muting her microphone after every question. And if I'm wrong about that, I'm mistaken. That is simply what was shown on Zoom on my screen. And so I was just simply asking if she would just prevent from muting her microphone so that everyone over Zoom understood that she was hearing the questions and providing her own answers to the questions. That was the only
Sure.
basis for me interjecting, and that's all I simply would ask. And we should take a break right now for a few minutes.
Are you aware of any study that supports that DTaP does not cause autism?
No, but I am also not aware of any study that says that it does.
Fair enough. Well, Gyre, but it was deemed not reliable, right?
Correct.
So if there isn't enough evidence to reach a conclusion, not saying vaccines cause autism, I'm certainly not asking you to say that. All I'm asking you is a matter of science, as a matter of logic. If you don't have the proof that DTaP doesn't cause autism, not saying it does, but you don't have the proof yet that it doesn't, right? Isn't it premature? Let me just finish. Thank you. Isn't it premature to say that all vaccines do not cause autism?
No, I do not believe that that is the case, sir. I feel that I have answered this question repeatedly. I do not feel that vaccines cause autism.
Okay. And do you have a study that supports that DTaP doesn't cause autism?
I do not have a study that DTaP causes autism. So I don't have either.
Fair enough. Do you have any study one way or another of whether IPOL causes autism?
No, I do not, sir.
Do you have any study one way or another of whether NGRX-B causes autism?
I do not have any evidence that it causes autism, nor that it does not.
And what about Hib-Titers vaccine? Any evidence one way or another of whether it causes autism?
No, I think that's really not been associated with it. I don't think there are reports of that, but the evidence is the same. It's neither conclusive or, as I have mentioned before.
Okay. And what about Prevnar vaccine? Any evidence one way or another?
No, sir. No, sir. But Prevnar is used all over the world, and there have been no reports of that in the large link databases.
Are there published studies that say that?
I'm not sure whether they're specific or not. Right.
Okay. And how about varicella vaccine? Let me just finish. Are there any studies one way or another that support whether it does or doesn't cause autism?
Part of MMR, but not as varicella by itself. No, sir. No studies that say it does, or no studies that say it doesn't.
Right. There have been studies that have found an association between hepatitis B vaccine and autism, correct?
Not studies that I feel are credible.
Okay. Sitting here today, do you have any evidence for what caused Yates's autism?
I have no confirmation of what caused Yates's autism, except that I know that it's not from his vaccine receipt. As Dr. Orenstein mentioned, we have 3 vaccines approved for use in the United States. 2 are mRNA vaccines made by Pfizer and Moderna, and 1 is an adenoviral vectored vaccine produced by Johnson & Johnson. As Dr. Orenstein mentioned, they are all directed to the spike protein that is critical in the actual anchoring of the virus to the host cell and in the initiation of infection. All three were shown to be very effective in preventing disease caused by laboratory-confirmed SARS-CoV-2 virus. I think Dr. Orenstein's point about protecting other individuals is really important as children go back to school. And as we know, children over 12 years of age are eligible and should be vaccinated, but in those less than 11, they cannot at this point be vaccinated. But if indeed we surround them or cocoon them with adults that are all vaccinated, that is really important in protecting our children. And death and hospitalizations. Just this morning on the news, I heard people saying that an intensive care doctor, every single person on ventilators in his unit were unvaccinated individuals. So I think we cannot lose the forest for the trees. And we do know that vaccines are highly effective against infection in terms of 60%, as Dr. Orenstein said from the latest CDC healthcare worker. We wish it was 100%, but 60% is certainly quite adequate.
Reunite with others. Find the walls. Climb the walls. Every fucking day. Find the walls. Climb the walls. Every fucking day.